Okay everybody, welcome to this video. Today in this video we're going to have a look at the new feature that was released maybe 48 hours ago, which is called WorkSpaces Interface Endpoints, powered by Private Link. And ultimately, it's a way of connecting to WorkSpaces for the streaming traffic, not across the internet, but instead streaming that traffic privately across our managed Direct Connect or VPN and through our customer VPC. If we have a look at the documentation, here are the following prerequisites and limitations. It's currently only available for WorkSpaces Personal, so it doesn't support WorkSpaces Pools. It will only exclusively work with Amazon DCV, so this feature is not available for Teradici PC over IP. The WorkSpaces clients require internet connectivity for the user authentication piece. So let's go back here. You can see that the authentication from the end user client, from the WorkSpaces client, goes out the internet to the auth gateway still, and then the traffic is split for streaming across directly to the VPC, the customer's VPC, and then up into the workspace itself. So the streaming traffic is private, but the authentication traffic is still out across the internet. So you might be asking, why on earth would we want to do that in the first place? Because our users on their devices need direct connectivity to the customer or to your VPC in AWS. So that's a pretty big additional level of infrastructure that's required, rather than what natively happens where the client authentication and streaming happens out over the internet, automatically managed by the service. In the situation where you are a customer that wants to do something like that, then let's go now and have a look at how you configure the endpoint, how you enable it on a WorkSpaces directory, and then how you test it. So the first thing around setting up a VPC endpoint for WorkSpaces streaming is to create a security group. So here I am in the AWS console. I've clicked on VPC and we're going to scroll down to security groups. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I have actually created all of these services and functions in my local region. So I'm going to go through in a region that's not closest to me and just step through these for you. But the first step is to create a security group. We'll call it security group WorkSpaces private link. We'll link it to the only VPC available. And then we need to add some inbound rules. And these are the inbound rules that will be applied to the private link interface that will be in our customer VPC or in our own VPC. I'm going to add 4 rules. We're going to do UDP, UDP, TCP, TCP. We're going to open and allow SSL. And we're also going to allow 4195, which is DCV streaming. Ideally, you would secure this security group that we're adding to the interface endpoint and only allow traffic from a recognized CIDR. And by that means just simply changing this to something like, and that way, you're ensuring that the traffic is only coming from a VPC that you trust. So that means we will apply a security group to this interface endpoint that is only allowing traffic from this specific IP range. The next step is now to go and create the VPC endpoint. So back in the VPC console here, first we're going to click on endpoints, and then we're going to click on the orange create endpoint. We'll call this endpoint-workspaces. The service is Highlander. We'll select that. We'll put it into a specific VPC where we want it to be presented. We only have one. It only supports IPv4. That's fine. We must enable the DNS names as part of our configuration. We could say which subnets we would like this endpoint to be available in. And you can designate a specific IP address for that if you want to control that. At this point, I'm just going to let it be chosen for me. And here is where we assign the security group we created earlier. Happy with those settings now. I'm going to go ahead and create the endpoint. And then the final configuration is editing the WorkSpaces directory to use the VPC endpoint. So this is an all or nothing change, which means every workspace that's associated with the WorkSpaces directory must either use the internet or must stream over the private link. Let's go and have a look at what that looks like in my Sydney region in my WorkSpaces account. I'm going to click on the WorkSpaces. I'm going to change my region to Sydney, where I have this configuration already set up. And it's here on the directories of WorkSpaces that I want to go and configure the private link streaming. So I'm going to keep scrolling down on the configuration of the directory until we find VPC endpoints. And here you can see it's currently set the streaming endpoint to internet. And it's here where we will go and edit that and change it to the VPC endpoint we created earlier. Now remember, the one that I was demonstrating was created in Singapore. I have created one earlier in the Sydney region. And in the Sydney region, I called that EP-workspaces or endpoint-workspaces. So let's see what happens though, before we do any of that, what happens when I go and log into a workspace via this directory. We're testing this bit here first, the default access. So I'm configured to point to the directory. I'll log in as my username and my password. And because the streaming is set to the internet, this instance will stream out over the internet. Here you can see the WorkSpaces is connected and running. Whilst I'm connected to that, let's go and change the directory setting. So back in directories, back in the personal directory that I want to edit, we're going to scroll down, we're going to find the VPC endpoint, we're going to edit that, and we're going to change it to the streaming endpoint here, and we're going to save it. And the workspace is still working at this time. As soon as I close this session and reopen it, I will no longer be able to connect to the workspace. Let's check that. So we're now in this configuration here. If I try to log into WorkSpaces, because I am not able to connect across this streaming part, it's simply not going to work now. So let's go and log in. And you will see it will try and launch the workspace and it will just simply stay blank. And after 30 seconds to a minute, it will just simply disconnect. So at this point, we need something that has access inside this VPC to be able to talk directly to the interface endpoint. So I could have direct connect. I could have a VPN on my laptop talking across here to the customer VPC section. Or what I'm going to do, I'm going to use our SSM Fleet Manager. And I'm going to put an EC2 instance here in this customer VPC. And I'm going to stream from it to the WorkSpaces instance itself. Keeping in mind that this instance will go out the internet for the authentication still. There you can see my workspace has been quote unquote disconnected. So that's fine. That's exactly what we were expecting. Let's close that off. Let's go and have a look now at what happens when I log into this EC2 instance and try and launch the WorkSpaces session. So I'm going to go to the AWS console. I'm going to click on EC2. I'm going to click on a running instance. Here's one here. I'm going to click the connect button. I'm going to use RDP, but rather than using direct RDP, because you can see this instance is in a private subnet, so I won't be able to connect over the internet to it, I'm going to use Fleet Manager or the Fleet Manager Remote Desktop. I'm going to click on Fleet Manager Remote Desktop. And it's here that I can type my Active Directory username and password to log into this instance directly without even having to expose it on the internet by using SSM, which is fantastic. Session. Fleet Manager is connected to my EC2 instance. You can see it's on the private IP address of 10.62.* or 10.62. So I know it's on the VPC that has access to connect to WorkSpaces. Let me go and open the WorkSpaces client now, and we'll try again. And we should find that this connects very quickly, and there we go. There's the workspace that I was connected to earlier. So now that I'm in the workspace, I can go and check the network latency here in the top right in the Windows workspace client, and we should find that the latency is quite low. And you can see here that the round trip time is 5 milliseconds, which is approximately what I would expect for intra-VPC communications from my VPC to the workspace, which is awesome. Let's just go out of full screen now, and I'm going to change the directory in WorkSpaces back to the default. So we're going to turn off this mode. We're going to go back to this mode where the streaming should be out over the internet. And before I do that though, let's go and open Notepad. James was here. Via private link. That's great. Back to the console, back to the directory that we were working with, and let's turn off now the VPC endpoint. And what we should find is as soon as we go back to the internet, the instance or the session still remains open. It's still usable. Let me go and open a browser, for example. That's fine because that continuous path is still working, which is great. And now, if I was to launch it from my local device, I should now be able to effectively steal this session and run it and connect to it from my endpoint again, from my laptop. There we go. It's removed or killed my session there in the private link. That's fine. And you can see it has actually loaded up, and here it is now running again, which is awesome. So a very quick video on how to go and configure and leverage private link, what it looks like, and why potentially you might want to use it so that you can stream the traffic privately. I hope the video has been helpful for you. Any questions or comments, do let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.